Welcome to the Imperial Interlude. This week, Ahsoka Tano is met by the Mandalorian on the forest planet of Corvus, where the name of the child is revealed and another very important member is shown. Hello, Ralph.
Hey, Tim.
So, first things first, as most people interested in Star Wars things may have heard yet, we had a passing again in the original trilogy.
Yeah,
David Prowse has passed at the age of, I think, 85.
that's correct. He was 85 when he passed, when the news broke today.
That that's an age I think we can all think that's an achievement of sorts.
It is, especially considering he was suffering really badly after he did Vader and other things in his career from arthritis, and he had
Yeah,
his own arthritis charity. So even after finishing Star Wars, he still did conventions and things. And when you went to get his autograph, he didn't take the money that he charged for his autographs, as all of them do. All the money he made off the autographs for Vader or numerous other roles that he was in. He was in Clockwork Orange. He did something in the UK called the Green Cross Code
yes,
Man, which
that was
was
a very. If you see that for the first time, you actually go, no.
it worked. It saved, it was for kids learning how to cross the road. So, it was
Yeah,
good. It was, it worked for what it was. But he always charged for his autograph, but when the money all went to his charity. So it was a way of keeping sort of his charity going and things with his autograph and things, which was a nice touch. Lovely man,
have you
really was.
seen the fan made effort of giving him the scene in Empire Return of the Jedi?
I haven't, but I've heard of it that they sort of put his face in and
No,
instead of
no, they,
Spat.
they actually didn't put his face in. They reenacted the complete scene with him on set.
Oh, is that the one I think I have seen?
And I just thought that that was something very lovely.
Yeah.
After all the years, I never really actually knew that it wasn't him being that person laying in the arms of Mark Hamill. So that was a
It was,
very
yeah,
nice touch, I think.
someone else. It was, and I mean, he commented a couple of times on, that originally he thought he was going to be doing the voice of Vader, but the George, I think, said, or somebody said, they're not going to have a Lancastrian accent coming out of this big foreboding
Yeah, it
character.
wouldn't have
So,
fit well, to be brutally honest.
you know, he was a lovely man. I mean, I did have the chance to meet him once, and just a really kind, accommodating, and just would speak to you and all of that. He was an amazing person.
Yes.
It's a
So
it's a loss.
So there's just Mark Hamill left, Harrison Ford, Anthony Daniels, and of course Darth Vader's voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't dare think who's next.
No, let's not think on that one. Let's not dwell on that one. Let's more talk about Friday. And
Yes,
oh boy, shall we precate this with, if you've been living under a rock and you've not wanted to see any of it, spoilers.
lots of them. Even though there isn't much talking in this episode, there's a lot of information coming out of this at the end of the show, more or less. There are some nuggets here and there that I again found very lovely, just sprinkled on for good measure. So we starting with the Mandalorian entering the atmosphere and
Well,
landing more or
there's a
less
there's
on
a
the planet.
huge chunk before that, though, isn't there?
Oh, you mean that little sword fight?
Yeah, that intro where I think the internet collectively lost its brain.
Yeah, there were some poor sods in some weird armor running through what looked like an atomic blasted uh, forest, running around and suddenly getting chopped into pieces by two white, very humming lightsabers.
Now, what's interesting is that the audio, I mean, the sound design on this episode was incredible. It
Yes.
was superb. The audio for the lightsabers is exactly the same audio that they used in Rebels.
Well, why shouldn't they?
So it's exactly the same, which was a nice touch. And also, when you look at the lightsabers, they almost went to a point. If you look at them, So they've tried to, when they've mapped them in with the technology, they've tried to make them look like they did in Rebels as well.
Yeah, and also they
Almost.
are not equally sized, so that's a short one and a longer one, exactly as she has in the animated series.
As she has in the animated series, yes, the twin ones, which is just. But yes, it's. I think the internet and a lot of people thought, oh, it's going to be a cameo. It's going to be appear at the end of the episode, 10 minutes maybe.
Maybe finding her somewhere in a cave,
Yeah.
dying of some weird disease, and chucking him to his next destination. But fuck no.
No.
Hello,
No.
here I am. Do you have some time to talk about our Lord and Savior Lightsaber 1 and 2? Chop chop, you're dead.
It was just like, oh, this is where they're going. This is what they're doing. Did you get, I know this is going to, in the later part of the episode as well, it says, did you get the feeling from just that intro that it was very much like a samurai movie?
Yeah, the let's call it the art style was very cinematic, and it has the tempo was much slower than any of the previous episodes, except for when there's fighting going on. Then it's going just snap, snap, snap.
It was the ringing of the gong and the music and the sound of the music for that fight and everything, and later on as well. It was very much, and I went back on the web and had a look at things like
the gong and the visual design of the complete village was very much Asian inspired, to say the least.
Because I went back through and had a look at some of Kurosawa's old like stuff, like the trailers for Yojimbo and Seven Samurai, Kagemusha, Ran, all of those big Akira Kurosawa movies, who was a big influence on George for Star Wars. And it's very much like that. Yeah, it is very, very much.
And we must not forget, in the first few drafts, the part of Ben Kenobi was actually depicted as a sort of samurai. So we're going basically full circle here.
And even her costume later on with the pants and stuff was very much of that style. But yes, that intro was like, okay, Jedi are scary.
Especially Jedi can fuck your day up.
Especially when there's fog and all you're getting is this black shape moving around and turning lightsabers off and on.
And I really felt bad for the one when she went off scope and one soldier said to the other, she's off the radar, go lure her out. Oh, great.
But then that's when we get the call from so as the fight's going on, we see on the battlements or the balcony or whatever, above
the gate,
a gunslinger. Now, did you recognize the gunslinger?
Not at first, but at second glance I did, and boy did I grin like a madman. We see Corporal Hicks, Kyle Reese, and a Sandman all combined into one.
Also Johnny Ringo, which will come later on as well, because he was in Tombstone. So
it was a glorious thing to behold.
Yeah, and then you get the magistrate turning up.
Yes.
Who calls out Ahsoka and says, show yourself Jedi. Now, that's interesting because, as many Star Wars fans will attest to, she's no longer a Jedi. She left at the end of season 5, as we know, of Clone Wars. And when she came back in season 7, spoilers for people who haven't watched it, she didn't return to the Jedi Order.
No, but then again, this may be simply a called a semantic thing, because Jedi is a mindset, and the school of Jedi at that point is basically dead.
I think what they mean by Jedi is anybody that they see wielding lightsabers.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're
non-Sith lightsaber wielding lunatic.
Yeah. I think that's where it comes from, but it's just an interest in that everybody who sees, I think she's a Jedi, but from a point of view, she even says in one of the episodes in Rebels, I'm no Jedi, which is quite interesting. There's a couple of
well, she may be saying that only to protect herself or to keep herself secret a bit more, but that's not here nor there.
Nope.
So the magistrate calls her forth and asks how much the knowledge inside the magistrate head is worth to her 1, 10, or 100 civilians.
Yeah.
Because something the magistrate knows is a thing that Ahsoka Tano wants to know. And
Indeed.
we won't find out what that is until the end of the episode. And then we're all going mental.
Yeah. What was really good about that as well is when we finally see her, when she comes out of the mist and stuff, it starts playing Ahsoka's theme, which I thought mapped in. The Ludwig's did an excellent job of melding Ahsoka's theme in with the Mandalorian music that you normally hear. It was just seamless, and that her theme is just an incredible piece of writing from I can't remember who does it. Is it who does the music now? I'll find that out in a moment. But it was just the whole her appearing and then having her theme come in. It was just great. Now I have seen people on the web complaining about the Leku, about the head tails being too short. My argument is from a acting, prosthetic, mobility point of view. I think, it's difficult. I think, you've got your stylized look that you have in Rebels and Clone Wars of the character, yeah? And that's animation. I think for the actress to wear that, even though it can be lightweight, it still is quite a weight to put on, the
I have
headpiece
in
and
my
things.
hands the official Star Wars mini for Ahsoka Tano for Disney Infinity. And if you ignore that her arms are way too thin for being an actual human being, the head tails are actually as long as in the movie. They're not too short. They may have been overemphasized in the animation at some point, but with having this mini right before me, they don't go any further than they are shown in the TV show now.
I think it's people were comparing Rebels because in Rebels they're actually slightly longer, but I think, as you said, it's a stylization of them on from the point of view of what you can do with animation compared to what's probably practical within the
Also,
constraints of acting and things like that.
also, we don't know if those aren't any kind of tentacles with muscles in them that
Yeah.
may be able to contract or not. So that's just, again, it's a visual design aid, and she
Yeah.
doesn't look wrong. It actually looks like a very good translation from a 3D object out
Yeah.
of a computer into a living being.
Definitely. And I mean, her voice was on point as well. I know people were worried because it's Ashley Eckstein who does it in the animation, but I thought Rosario Dawson did an excellent job of capturing Ahsoka. Even the mannerisms and things I just thought were on point.
Also,
Just in that entrance
yeah.
scene alone.
Also, we must not forget Ahsoka Tano in the animated series starts as a child, more or less, and is a very, very young adult when the series ends, and now she's basically a war veteran. Nobody gets out with the same voice you get
Exactly. Shall we sort of the thing before we move on to the next thing is do the whole elephant in the room of how hated the character was originally.
Which?
How Ahsoka
Was hated. Not by me. Not by me.
Not by me, but by a vast majority of certain faction of the Star Wars fan
No,
base.
I don't think
They
we need to go.
hated the character. Now she's beloved.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go that route because
No.
fans, regardless of what fandom, start to hate for various insane things. I don't think you need to hate on any character that's in there, and that's coming from someone who really dislikes Jar Jar Binks. But that's not the fault of the character. That's the fault of the one who put it in there.
Yeah, but Ahsoka was not a well-liked character when she first appeared. There was a lot of the fans going, "Oh, Anakin gets a Padawan," but if you look at her journey as a character, and that's what it's about. It's about the writing. It's about what Dave did. It's about what George brought in with Clone Wars. And if you look at the arc of that entire character, that character's probably had the greatest growth of anything in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, and let's not forget, it's a children's TV show, for God's sake, not like The Mandalorian, who actually caters to the older adult audience.
Well, apart from
mostly.
Mostly.
Most of the times.
Yeah. But then, of course, we cut from Ahsoka giving the magistrate a day to decide, and then disappearing off into the fog, to our hero himself turning up on Corvus.
Yeah, landing somewhere close to the town, and which somehow strikes me. Why would he land so far off? It doesn't make any sense. But we see that there are some very large creatures gnawing on the dead trees that are there, which we never get to see any closer. And then he wanders off to town.
Mm-hmm. Where he's then stopped from entering initially the town by the other gunslinger. Let's call him.
He's called Lang without any surname, just Lang.
Just Lang, is it? And one of his guards asking him what he wants to do, and he said he said he was on the hunt or being
no,
on.
He said he's a hunter, so you're on the hunt. Yes. And then he gets in. So there's no word of the bounty hunter. He's simply a hunter, which could mean anything.
Indeed.
And again, I think this play with words on the Mandalorian gets they get their money's worth out of using words very wisely.
Yeah. So as he enters the village, there's nobody around, or when he does, there's a few people and people ducking back into their huts and stuff. It's
there
very
is some very important people. There's a battle-torn 8D8.
Was there?
Yes, you saw that episode 3 times, and you tell me you did not see the 8D8 walking around town.
No, I didn't see the 8D8.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. So he literally enters the village, and then there's a very blasted-looking 8D8 walking past him. That's the first time we see an 8D8 walking and not standing there torturing some poor power droid.
Never noticed.
Oh, God.
Never noticed. I was too busy trying to look at for other things.
Well, so he gets into the town and tries to ask a merchant, and the merchant walks off, just leaves him standing, and then he tries to talk with some children. And then we see someone who is just called Wing, which is, for some odd reason, his real name, then just says, "Don't talk to the people." And at that moment, the hired guns appear and call him to join the magistrate.
Yeah. Which is then where we cut to meeting the magistrate for the first time.
Yes, has an inside garden with fishes and pond.
Yeah, very much the Zen garden, I would say, and very much the walled part of where the village was all not decrepit, but probably squalor.
It looked a bit rough and poor.
The poor end of town.
Yeah.
You go through the gates into her part of the village where she lives, and it's perfect.
Did you notice it was a double-sided gate? It was actually two gates folding outside.
Yes.
So basically, there is no way getting into her domain without getting through some kind of airlock.
Yeah. So very much the sort of the feudal Japan walled sections and things like that within that, and that's what it felt like when he went into that. He was in that sort of walled Zen garden with the koi carb and all of that. And
the inner sanctum of some weird castle.
Indeed, and that's where he's given or offered a job, which is to kill basically Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah. Did you notice anything about the HK-87 assassin droids that were accompanying the magistrate?
Other than they are the ones from Knights of the Old Republic? No.
Oh, I had to look a few times in enhanced pictures. They have the symbol of the 7th Fleet at the side of the head, which is the fleet of a certain someone we will name not at this time.
Yes. Yes.
So she offers the Mandalorian the job of getting rid of Ahsoka Tano, and in return, she will gift him a spear made of pure, what's it called again?
Beskar.
Beskar. And this is again where some choice of words come in. He doesn't says, yes, I do, or I will kill her. He simply says, where can I find her?
Exactly. Now, we'll do the. I've got an idea for the. There's two things in the episode that are, shall we say, throwaway geek moments, if you want, or throwaway moments. The spear is one, and something Lang says to the Mandalorian later on is another, and they're references to two things that aren't Star Wars.
I couldn't tell what the spear one is. I know what the one with Lang is, but what's your take on the spear?
Pedro Pascal played the Viper, played Tyrion Lannister's defender in Game of Thrones, didn't he?
That's why I'm not getting it, because I couldn't be asked watching that
Yeah.
show.
And in that, the character Pedro Pascal plays uses a spear. The fight scene between him and Mountain, Viper versus Mountain, is the episode. He uses a spear.
But if I recall correctly, he doesn't survive, does he?
No, he doesn't survive. That's what I meant. Is the Mandalorian might have a little bit of an issue using a spear.
I have a bad feeling about this. Well, so basically, he now gets the coordinates where he should be able to find Ahsoka Tano, and walks out the gate, accompanied by Mr. Lang again, which then notices the little green guy and asks, what is that? And the Mandalorian simply goes, I keep it around for good luck.
Which I thought was quite good.
Yeah. And then he wanders off into this burned, really sad-looking forest. And on one branch of a tree, there is an owl.
Indeed.
And it's very, very at the edge of the screen, but it's very prominent, and you see it the moment it appears. It's not to be not seen.
It's the Morai. Every time from basically we see Ahsoka after those episodes, where they go into in Clone Wars, they go into that sort of alternate universe almost, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, or there's a lot of references every time after that when you see Ahsoka to seeing the Morai, to seeing the owl, because the daughter is the one that used her life force to save Ahsoka, and her character, of course, in that, or she could transform herself into an owl.
Mm.
So it's always, whenever you see Ahsoka and you see an owl, you know that's probably a reference to the Morai, the daughter.
Yeah.
Just a nice little touch. Just a nice. Here you saw this character. You saw the Morai at the end of Clone Wars. Here it is again.
Yeah. And then, as was expected, at least by me from the very beginning, they don't just meet and have a little chat, but they try to kill each other.
Well, I've got a suspicion I know who would probably win that fight. But it's interesting. Has it ever been mentioned anywhere that Beskar is lightsaber resistant? I don't think it has in canon.
I don't think it has been actually mentioned, but since it was impervious to blast of fire, and that has been shown multiple times, there is some, well, you wouldn't expect it, but it's not such a big of a surprise anymore. The thing that I was thinking at that moment was, hold on a moment, you can't blast it. You can't use a lightsaber on it. How the hell do you forge it?
Mandalorians
throw it into the sun.
Indeed. I just didn't think it had ever been mentioned in canon. I know it had been mentioned in Legends, because I know in a couple of the later books, the last 7 books that they did, where Jaina Solo was being trained by Boba Fett. When you meet Boba Fett again, he, because he's Mandalore, got a Beskar gam made, which was a neck piece that he could wear under the helmet.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that before.
To stop him from getting decapitated.
Well, let's just assume it has been somewhat established in the universe, but simply because of the rarity of Beskar, it's not widespread use.
But
That also would explain why everybody and their granddaughter wants to kill him for his armor.
exactly. But it was quite interesting that he does the grappling around her, which was very reminiscent of Fett on the sail barge, but she just looks up and jumps over the tree.
Yeah, but to be honest, he wouldn't have many choices with just
No,
having one gun and she simply deflecting every of his shots.
exactly. But then there was the backflip as well from the flamethrower, which I thought was quite cool.
Yeah, and also her coat is seemingly unburnable, or at
Yes,
least very flame retardant.
very flame retardant. But then he stops her by basically saying, "So Katana, Bo Katan sent me," and as she stops and looks, is it Bo Katan sent me to find you? And then she looks and she speaks and she says, I hope it's about him."
Yeah, I
And the
think
camera pans to
it's
child.
because of the short break in the fighting, she's made aware of our little green friend looking at them both again, very not taking part in anything. I think if he had a cup, he would take a sip again, just
Yes,
like he did before.
when the mecha are doing.
Yes, I
And
think
then
this is a recurring theme. Him just sitting there, not giving a rat's ass, just looking at people fighting.
indeed. But then it cuts to them nighttime with Ahsoka and the child sitting. No conversation between them that we
No
hear.
conversation that we can hear.
And the Mandalorian Din walking back and forth like a worried father.
Yeah, so something like he's waiting for test results or something.
Yes. And then we get that lovely cinematic moment of the moon and Ahsoka picking the child up.
Yeah, that's where the first time where the episode gets really slow and careful with all its pictures. So
Yeah.
it's starting to get more like a movie and a really let's call it an arty film, more like art than exactly a cinema action movie thing.
Yeah, definitely. It was also, I think it was the many beats in the story and then the framing of what they wanted to tell in this episode that Dave Filoni hit just perfectly for what he wanted to do. From supposedly it was very emotional for him to direct the episode because he created Ahsoka. So there was going to be nobody else directing this episode, I think, to be honest.
No, it would have been weird if somebody
Yeah.
else would have done it. And now we have the first of two, let's call them planet killer meteorite impacts of this episode, because we learn the name of the child.
We do indeed. So Disney are going to have to start now changing all of their merchandise from the child to.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the official way of how it's written, because let's say it's called Grogu.
Roku. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me as a German, that is spelled Groku, because it's a hard sound. But most things I saw written on the internet, they spell it Grogu.
Yeah.
But that would be more Grogu.
Well, I could see a lot of people getting it mixed up with Grogu from Dragon Ball Z.
That's a whole different story there.
That's a whole different universe.
That's a can of worms we are not opening now.
So yes, she explains where he's been or what happened to him, which was the other sort of little drop that he was actually on.
That's more or less a real backstory we now have from him. So we know he has been on Coruscant. We know he has been in the Jedi Temple and has been trained there for some time, only to be taken away and having some sort of amnesia for a part, not knowing where he is. And I'm guessing, since he has been part of experiments within the Empire before, that he may have been taken during the regency of Emperor Palpatine, when he was still just the Senate.
I got the feeling from the way that it was being framed was that he was taken away before being found by the Empire, and it
Could be,
was Gideon had found out about him. I don't know how, possibly old records or whatever, and was looking for him because he knew he was alive. Because I've got a suspicion they said that the coordinates were 50 years old that they'd gotten, so that sounds like that he was taken away and hidden on that planet.
could very well be.
Which,
I'm guessing we're getting some more background to the end of this
yeah,
season, when perhaps maybe Moff Gideon is appearing again and maybe doing something typical like the bad guy explaining his plot to someone he thinks is going to die and then getting shot himself in the face.
well, I don't know.
Something along those
Something along
lines.
those. But then when she explains, and then she turns around and says, "I've only seen one other being." Did you hear the music cue cut in there?
A bit, yes. And also,
It was like,
I thought at that moment when I first saw it, I thought, well, this is a bit of a cheap way out for not knowing what race he is, where the home planet is, and where we might find more of him. Because, yeah, I know one other who looks the same green guy. He's called Kermit the Frog. Oh, no, wait. It's.
but I've got a suspicion that not many of the Jedi this would be my thing on that, is there's not many of the Jedi, and remember when Ahsoka met Yoda, she was a Padawan, so she wasn't even higher up in the Jedi, would know where, if the council has kept that secret, where they're from.
Well, that could
You
be,
know,
but keeping a complete sentient species hidden
maybe to
while
protect.
one of their representatives is active on a council. No, I think that's a bit too much.
Maybe it's a little bit too much, but you never know. You know, we don't know
Yeah,
what they were
it
thinking. You know,
could have any reason, and I'm guessing sooner or later we will have some answer to that.
but it was nice to hear that the music cut in when she
Yeah,
mentioned Yoda's theme. It was just that little bit, and you can just make it out, and it was just like, yep, they've done it.
yeah, and no, we know that he's definitely of the same origin, that he is force wielding, and then the next morning she tests him,
Mm-hmm.
which is I thought a very heartwarming scene, seeing the Mandalorian being giving the head nods and, yeah, do it, kid, you can do it, and make
Yes.
it.
So she causes a rock to fly to Goku, or
Very much like Anakin Skywalker did with the apple with Padme.
yes, indeed, and asks him to send it back to her, which he
Doesn't do.
just drops it, and then she gets the Mandalorian to come in. He goes, because he originally goes, yeah, he's very stubborn. No, I was talking to you, she says, when she gets him to come, and then she says, make a connection. And earlier in the when just before the land, the child was after the little metal
Yeah,
top
again the
again.
running gag with the control stick, and despite being using his hands the previous episodes, this time he used the Force to unscrew it and get it into his grubby little palms.
Indeed. So the Mandalorian pulls it out of his pocket and holds it and goes, "Kid, do you want this?" And then we have it flying straight towards his hands, showing that he was, still force sensitive or still using the force actively.
Yeah, and
This is what Ahsoka was testing, I think.
at that point, Ahsoka gets very emotional because she
Yes.
denies training the little one because of his connection to the Mandalorian, and the fear of losing the Mandalorian would lead to a dark path, and she has seen the best of them fall to this fear, which is obviously a reference to Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader because of the
Yeah.
death of his beloved wife.
Mm-hmm. And Ahsoka knows that well because she faced off against Vader in Rebels and twigged it was Anakin when she did.
Yeah.
Just really, really nice episode, the Twilight of the Apprentice, which actually the Twilight of the Apprentice comes in later on as well in one of the framed scenes that they do, which is really nice. So she says she won't train him, and the Mando goes, basically, you give me your word, I'll help you. I'll help you if you train the child. And we get that lovely line where he turns around, where we get an explanation of who the magistrate is
Yeah,
in that.
I tried to get where she's originally from, but I didn't catch that. But she has a history with the Empire of
Her
sorts.
homeworld was destroyed. She survived and decided to work for the Empire and basically helped create their fleet.
Yeah, but it's never told what her homeworld was. And I tried to figure out from the marking on her forehead what that homeworld could have been, but no luck.
Nope. The character's called Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah, which is funny enough, I think, to have such a weird surname.
I thought when she said that, before she named her, if she hadn't named her, I was expecting it might have been Quat, as in Quat-E, space drives and stuff, but no. So no idea where. So the Mandalorian goes, a Mandalorian Jedi, they'll never expect it, or they'll never see it coming.
Yeah.
When I heard that line, I thought of the Mandarin from Iron Man 3, where he goes, "You'll never see it coming." And then we cut to nighttime, where the guard is basically sees her coming through the fog again. That's a very foggy planet.
Yeah, especially since there are no trees alive.
Yes. And he starts banging on the gong, and that's where we get the lovely Ahsoka leaping over the battlement.
Yeah. Speaking of the gong, the first time I heard that thing go off, and then seeing that it's being rang in defense of the Jedi, the first thing I thought, this thing is going to get cut in half at some point. It's just too massive. That's a cinema shot that needs to happen.
It is a cinema shot, and it did.
And it did.
Which was quite fun. But what was quite good about that as well, that whole sort of intro thing of there when she came back, was when she grabbed using the Force, grabbed the gun from the guy and fired it at the other guy's head.
Smacked the guy behind him.
And then she just turned and looked at him. And it was just that little gesture. I think it just shows how much Rosario had put into actually studying and probably speaking with Dave on set and things like that, watching probably bits of Rebels and Clone Wars to get the Mazarisms right, because that was just like, yep, that's, and then she was that little half smile.
Yeah,
that she did with it was just like this, and then a guy stands and tries to attack her in front of the gong, and it's like, yep, you're going to get cut into, and he was.
He is suddenly more than a man.
And then we get that shot of the gong rolling and dong.
Two parts dropping down. The remnants of the hired guns, along with Lang, assemble just before the entrance to the inner circle, where the cages of the prisoners are also standing, which I don't think we have mentioned yet.
No, there was when Ahsoka leaves the first time, she tells Lang to cage the villager she brought up, and we see them. They're basically electronic cages that are like standing stakes almost. It's a type of thing.
There are 6 cages, 3 left, 3 right, and there are only 3 set up, 2 on the left, 1 on the right, and every time the inmates move too much, they get electrocuted for a bit, and we can see some parts of their skeletons, so it's obviously not a nice commodity.
And then, of course, we get the shot of Ahsoka standing at the far end of the walkway, and it's just like, yeah,
she's not even jumping from above down. She slowly walks in from the right, and
indeed,
at that point we are so far into Eastern movie territory. There's no turning back.
There's definitely that samurai feel, that lone swordsman coming to deal with, very much like what a Kurosawa did with Yojimbo.
Also, if you have mentioned, if you may have noticed, it's very windy and all the lights are dangling around, just like the paper lampions did in every other samurai movie. It's just
definitely
thing screamed East movie.
And I think it suited it so well. It just seemed the perfect fit for what they were trying to achieve with the episode.
Yeah,
I think just that framing. And then she walks down and she throws something on the ground.
At first, the magistrate comes out and joins the forces with her 2 HK-87 assassin droids. Ahsoka slowly walks down the main street and throws the shoulder plate from the Mandalorian on the floor.
Which is the one with the mudhorn on.
Yes, as a proof that he's dead.
Yeah,
saying and it's like, your bounty hunter didn't make it or something along those lines.
Your bounty hunter failed.
Yeah, like, and at that point, the magistrate simply goes, kill her, take these two with you, and then simply walks back into her hideout.
She goes, kill her, and Lang does, I think it's something like, my pleasure, or I want to. Something like that. And then they all suddenly start firing, and Ahsoka's not there. She's leaped up as they start shooting. And then you get that lovely blocking, that whirling lightsaber blocking of blaster bolts.
Did you notice the gun from Lang? It's a scatter gun. And it really blows a hole into the ground.
Yes, it's a blaster shotgun.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I think we have never seen such a thing in action in any live action Star Wars movie before, and I think we need more of those.
Yeah, never. I don't even think we've seen it in animation either.
Maybe some side arc, but definitely not on the main screen.
No.
But Ahsoka leaps off. They start to hunt her down. There are 2 guards left at the gate, getting order from the magistrate to kill the prisoners, and then the magistrate closes the doors behind her.
Yeah, and then we hear as they're about to it's kill them and then go door to door.
Yeah,
but we also get the scene before that as well when she says that of Wing looking out of the door to see what's going on, and then we get, and just as they're about to shoot, he opens his door to come out, I think. But just as they're about to,
he is always looking, and when they start to aim, he's running, and then we hear a certain jetpack scream, and the Mandalorian flying kick into the face of one of the guards, shooting the other one.
Then spins around and shoots the other one, and then as Wing comes running out, he turns and pulls down the guard, and then the 2 of them start.
They give them each other a nod, and then they start releasing the prisoners.
And then we cut to Bat Ahsoka.
And one thing, we never see him picking up his shoulder plate.
No,
but he has it at the end of the show. So
yes, well, assumptions.
I'm guessing it was the second thing he did after releasing the prisoners, getting back his precious shoulder plate.
I think it was let's put this back on because I might need it.
And this could come in handy later.
And then we cut to Bat Tono, because that's what it was very much of that. But did you notice the loft cats?
Yes, there were loft cuts everywhere. The poor swords in the masks, the hired guns that were running through the streets, and every time they turned, suddenly there was Ahsoka Tano cutting them down, and when they turned around again, there was a loaf cat going.
But speaking of what I mentioned earlier about Twilight the Apprentice, there's the scene where she comes up behind the 2 of them and she pulls the blades apart.
Yes,
that's direct from Twilight the Apprentice. She does exactly the same. They're pulling the lightsabers apart, so it looks like the blades are coming. One blade is coming out of sort of both of them, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
She does exactly the same move in Twilight the Apprentice.
Yeah, I think there were some effort put into her fighting styles to
definitely
to cement that she is Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah,
full stop.
It's just that extra sort of we'll pick that bit, and then of course we get Ahsoka facing off with Lang.
Yeah, he again shooting his very nice little monster shotgun.
I thought she cut it out of his hands, but I think he drops it. And then the 2 HK droids come after her too.
He shoots, and at the same time she deflects the fire, and I think she hits it from his hand. I don't think he's dropping it because it goes off to the side. So I'm guessing she hit it at some point. But then there's a pincer maneuver from the HK assassin droid, one left, one right, and they start to fire.
And then the one on as she runs left, she just jumps up, does the whole walls jump, and cuts it in two. It was like
in 3 pieces actually.
Three pieces of droid hit the floor as she runs off, and then he tells the other droid to go up, and we get that sort of jumping up, grabbing it, and then almost doing like a handstand roll.
Yeah, a very weird animation, but yeah, those droids are a bit of a hit and miss at this show. I think there were 1 or 2 scenes where I think they were a bit too obviously post-edited animations. The main culprit here being the scene where the magistrate was talking to the Mandalorian and having her handed the spear, because we see the droid walking up to her, then the camera cuts, we hear something, and it cuts back again, and the droid is walking back, and she suddenly has the spear, as if they weren't able or not willing to do the handoff animation.
Maybe it might just been a time constraint as well, because
Yeah.
in some respects, this was the second longest episode of this season, I think.
Yeah, it was almost 50 minutes.
Yeah, the longest one being the first one. This one, was a long one. So
just since we're almost through the episode, it is one of the more slower ones. It's got it's not boring, it's not dragging on, but there are scenes that are actually designed to give you an overview, to make you take in what they have built there, to see, and then there's the action part where it just goes snap, snap, snap.
Indeed, it was very much a let's give you a breather at this point. We've done the huge action, we'll have a little bit of a breather, then we'll have some more action, a little bit of breather, but building up all the time.
Yeah, very balanced.
Very, very much. So we get, as I was saying, Ahsoka kills one of the droids, the other droid goes off, and Lang goes after her. We then cut to the Lang coming into the main sort of thoroughfare, the main sort of street where the Mandalorian's standing there, and you get the music kick in, and looking over the Mandalorian's shoulder, standing on the wall towards the magistrate's home area, is Ahsoka and Lango. So yeah, so you've roped yourself in, I think he says, with her, or no, with
the
Jedi.
And it seems like that, he says, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Ahsoka jumps into the inner circles of the sanctuary, and our 2 gunslingers stand there facing each other off.
Definitely. This is where we get 2 different types of episode. If you think about it, we get when the magistrate and Ahsoka, because Ahsoka ends up in there facing off with the magistrate. That's your samurai. That's your samurai movie.
And this is where the part of oh god, I forgot the metal name again.
For what?
From the spear, the
Beskar.
Beskar being impervious to a lightsaber gets very important, because the magistrate takes the spear and tries to kill Ahsoka with it, and since it's not being cut by the lightsaber, she actually makes a not too bad figure.
She does. But then on the opposite side of that one, we get you get your Wild West gunslinger high noon.
Yeah, and it doesn't get very much more Wild West with the Mandalorian having his hand next to his gun, twitching fingers. The only thing that would have taken it even further into Wild West would be some tumbleweed going through the screen.
Tumbleweeds going around the screen. But then we get I thought that was a clever sound design as well, as when, because Ahsoka drops a cloak, the magistrate drops hers first, Ahsoka drops hers, and then she hits the lightsabers. And I think that's when the magistrate hits the ground and you get that harmonic chime.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really clever way of, when they cut to Lang and the Mandalorian fighting, or standing off, you could hear it.
Lang gets the very talkative when saying, I think there are those 2 are fighting, and this is not a hill we need to die on, and let's just wait what happens.
Exactly. But you get then you get that the fight. So the magistrate takes up a stance, Ahsoka takes up a stance, and then the magistrate strikes first, which Ahsoka blocks. But I think it's that whole, in sort of the samurai part of the thing with the samurai, the idea behind it is that you try to win the battle with your mind mentally first before you engage. And I think that's what they were trying to portray, was they were testing each other. That's why it wasn't an all-out, typical sort of fencing, a bit like the way Maul and Qui-Gon and Kenobi sort of fought. It was very much, that was very quick and very, dynamic and direct. Where this was, you've got two people who want to gauge each other in how they fight, and
needing to assess how good is the other one actually.
And then you have the conversation side of the typical sort of Western gunfighter jawing at one of them jawing at the other one, talking to him, and then cutting between those two dynamics was a really clever way of sort of spinning that whole mixture of Western and Eastern movie styles.
Yeah. And as we all have expected, at some point, Ahsoka wins the fight by de-arming the magistrate, which ends in a very clear clang when the spear hits the floor.
Indeed.
Which is the audio cue for Lang going, well, looks like your side won. And then he slowly goes down, seemingly dropping his weapon.
Well, putting his weapon down. But before that, when he goes... when he first approaches the Mandalorian, he goes, "I've got no problem with you, Mandalorian." Yeah? A hunter.
Which is, as I had to read up, a quote from another movie again.
It is.
Which he was in at the same position.
It's exactly, apart from the Mandalorian bit, it's exactly the same line that Michael Biehn did when he played Johnny Ringo in Tombstone. He goes, "I've got no problem with you, Holiday," referring to Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday. But what's interesting as well is he actually trained Michael Biehn how to be a gunslinger for Tombstone. He actually did the training and went through all the training to do it so they could be as accurate as they could be when they were doing the gunfights. So it's interesting that to put that little tweak of a line in there, so for people who have seen Tombstone. Great movie, I recommend it. And just that whole... Let's just throw that little nugget in there. It's not related to Star Wars, but people who have seen it know it.
And he drops his scatter gun, immediately drawing his gun, getting shot by Pedro Pascal because a Mandalorian can't be outpaced.
Exactly. My thing would have been it's Beskar. We know it's impervious to blasters and lightsabers. Where was he going to shoot him?
In the crotch. In the leg.
Yeah. Somewhere where the armor isn't,
Yeah, and let's be honest, there are some vital points that are not covered.
Exactly.
The neck, the throat, the sides. And he didn't need to kill him at first, but just get his arm away from the gun and then maybe lunge forward, whatever.
Indeed.
I'm guessing it's impervious to laser fire and laser swords. Is it impervious to sarcasm?
Maybe not. But then just before that, where Ahsoka's fighting now, did you see how she flipped her because Ahsoka gets down to one saber, and she flips into the back grip?
Yeah, and at that point, the magistrate seems to get scared shitless for some reason.
And then, as Ahsoka's asking her where her master is, we get the second big name drop.
Where is your master? Yeah. Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
It was like...
Which is the leader of the 7th Fleet. So, we've got assassin droids from the 7th Fleet. We've got Admiral Thrawn being name-dropped. And we know that Morgan Elsbeth has done much to raise ships for the Imperial Navy. There is no way in hell they will not have Thrawn in this series at some point. And I'm going to put money on the table. He's going to be a cliffhanger at the end of this season.
That's what I was thinking, that Thanos moment from the original Avengers.
He will not appear in person before the last episode. That would boggle my mind.
I think would boggle everybody's mind. But I think we may get that whole You know how at the end of the original Avengers, where you got that pan shot and the head turning,
No, I
and
don't
it was.
because I haven't seen it. I'm totally ignorant on comic movies of the last 10 years, to be honest. I couldn't be asked to watch them.
Anyway, when in 2012, if I remember correctly, 2012, 2010. Well, anyway, when they introduced the Avengers, the very end of the Avengers after the credits is basically you see the back of a throne, and then the camera pans up to the back sort of the head, and the head turns, and it's the outline of Thanos. I think you'll get something like that. I think you'll get a beat. Just he doesn't need to say anything. I think you may get to see a white uniform with
And some blue
skin,
skin.
red eyes, blue and dark blue hair.
I thought it might be more something along those lines that Grand Moff will do some kind of report on how things are developing with his black super stormtroopers, whatever they are, and that there's some kind of hologram call to Thrawn, and then we see him.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to wait. There's no going around.
Name drops. They've done three big they've done three big things in this season so far. We got to see Fett at the end of the first episode. That's going to come back around at some point. Maybe at the end of the season. I don't know. We had Bo-Katan turn up and then name drop Ahsoka, and then Ahsoka appearing, and now we've just name dropped Thrawn.
As the season currently is evolving, I don't think we will see Boba Fett in this season. I think Boba Fett is some longer going arc.
Maybe
he may get more screen time in the third season. I might be wrong on that completely, of course, but as the things are currently, we have one small appearance of his boot in the first season. We have a small appearance of his face in the second season at the start. There's just so many loose threads in this story. We have the Grand Moff with his weird force things he does. We have Grand Admiral Thrawn thrown at us, and let's not forget the end of this season, this episode.
Yes,
is when Ahsoka Tano tells she can't train the child because he has such a strong bonding with the Mandalorian, but she sends them to Tython to get there in the Jedi Temple and to basically sending them on a spiritual journey of sorts.
Yes, it's head to Typhon, place the child there, and then if he wants to continue his force sensitive training, he'll send a message
see
out.
what is going to happen. Will his head explode?
Now, have you heard of Typhon before?
I did, but I couldn't tell you where. I think it was in Rebels at some point.
No, it's actually from the video games. It's the starting planet that you play in Star Wars The Old Republic MMO. It's the starting Jedi planet is Typhon.
Oh, okay, so that's where I've heard it before then.
It's never been mentioned anywhere else that I can think of off the top of my small little brain. Typhon as a place is from Star Wars The Old Republic.
But there have been similar things going on in Rebels with
Lothal.
Lost temples and people doing mind journeys. So I may just have gotten that wrong then.
Yeah, but that was Lothal. That's where the planet Lothal sort of comes in. Is the Jedi Temple on Lothal that there was there as well. But yeah, so that's interesting that they're bringing in, you know, they're basically, I think what Dave and John have done, and they've looked at the breadth of what's out there and things that have been identified and things that are say in that have been mentioned in Legends and has been brought into this. But it's interesting that I think that's the next episode. I think they're going to be Typhon, because I think I think we're going to get a similar to the way 7 and 8 ended in the first season. I think we're going to get that little cliffhanger between 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
But I think episode 8 is going to end on a bigger cliffhanger, because Giancarlo Esposito, Moff Gideon, said he did some fighting with the Darksaber. I think that's where the Beskar spear is going to come into it as well. I think we're going to get the Mandalorian wielding the spear against the Darksaber.
Could very well be. I think we are 3 episodes left in this season.
There's only 3 left.
I'm guessing next one will be a filler episode again.
I think they're going to be on Typhon. I think he's heading straight to Typhon.
Well, we'll see next Friday who's right then.
We will, yes.
Because I could see them doing another filler of sorts for whatever reason, and then getting to Typhon at episode 7 and 8. And ending with some weird revelations, thingamajig, whatever.
Maybe it's just, but I know one of the directors to come up is, because we've seen most of the directors now. We know Peyton Reed directed episode 2. Was it 2 for the Spiders? It was, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that Robert Rodriguez of El Mariachi and all of that fame and Sin City and stuff with has got an episode to direct as well.
Well, that could be the next one then.
But he's very much an action director and an action horror director.
Well, I think this goes back to the what I really like about the Mandalorian so far. There are parts you can predict, but most times you're just waiting with bated breath on what the fuck are they doing next. We know Thrawn is mentioned, we know we have seen Boba Fett, and we know that Moff Gideon will appear again at some point, and Bo-Katan probably too. But hell did I know where they will come up to. And let's not forget, they also already agreed for a 3rd season. So there's still room.
Do we think, going off what we've seen, that we're going to get an Ahsoka live action show?
No, I don't think so.
Simply
because the character of Ahsoka Tano has been very much painted with a broad stroke within the animated series. I can see her making more and more appearances in shows that happened during her lifetime, but I don't think there's enough meat on the bones to get a complete series out of that.
Could do a limited series like what they're doing with Kenobi to do with the Ezra stuff.
Yeah, but then again, we have to wait and see how that turns out.
True. It's just because
I'm still very much burned by things like Solo Movie. This is just there's too much potential for shoving things into it for the sake of shoving that doesn't really belong in there. And with unnamed characters like the Mandalorian, where you have a blank slate, a blank canvas to paint your picture on, you can go whatever direction you want and nobody can actually go and tell you, no, you can't do that because this and this. No, fuck you. This is a new character. We can do whatever we want.
I'm just thinking, because you wouldn't sign somebody like Rosario on doing a one and done. That's all I'm thinking, You wouldn't sign an actress because she is a very talented actress and she's killed that character on a one and done thing. She appeared as Claire Temple in the Netflix Marvel series. She's done Sin City. She's done Kevin Smith work and stuff like that. So she's very much known.
Yeah, but to be brutally honest, I have looked up the main actors, the 4 of this episode, and Rosario is the one I recognized the least. That I can't see any roles or recognize Diana Lee Inosanto is given because she's a stunt woman.
Yeah.
Those people usually don't get recognized very easy. Michael Biehn, well,
we know.
Who wouldn't know him? Too late, man. Too late. But Rosario Dawson, I looked at IMDb on the roster she was in, and I can really say I have no fucking idea.
I guess it's because I've watched I watched Kevin Smith, so I've seen Jane Silent Bob Reboot. I watched, Clerks 2 and stuff like that. I've seen Sin City. She was in
I've
Sin
seen Sin
City.
City too. I wouldn't.
Mhm. You
I
wouldn't
couldn't
recognize
tell
her.
you.
No, yeah. She's voiced Wonder Woman as well, and I mean, I watch a lot of those, the animated stuff. So
again, voiceover is a different thing for me. It's a
true.
completely different beast because most of the times I don't get the original voices. That's
True.
what makes things like the role of Darth Vader very weird to me. Because, yeah, of course, it's not David Prowse. It never has been for me. And even
No.
if he would have been in the original, in the English version, we wouldn't have got him.
And I guess not watching things like Netflix and Iron Fist and the Netflix Marvel stuff, you wouldn't have seen on them either.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
even seeing the names of the movies and series she was in, that it's a long list of stuff
That you've
that
never
I
looked
can't
at.
relate to. So
Yeah. It was just in it, from a point of view of somebody that probably has seen, more of our work and stuff. It was just, she is recognizable, but I'm just wondering whether they have signed that to the same as what they've supposedly done with Tamuri Morrison, is signed them to contracts where they can be asked to appear or, show up, because they have established them now in live action as this is your live action Ahsoka. This is what she's going to look like. It's still going to be Ashley Eckstein voicing her in animation if they do animation. If she turns up in Bad Batch, she may turn up in the Bad Batch.
also, as I just said, there's a third season coming up, and it would be very much possible that she somehow ends up as a sidekick with the Mandalorian,
Especially if,
as a force guidance to the child,
and if we're bringing in Thrawn, yes.
so that there may be let's call it a bigger band of merry men going around the universe trying to get Thrawn off his throne.
Maybe. We have no idea where Thrawn is.
And
That's the
what
interesting thing.
scale his army is. I only know him from the books, and do the book Thrawn scare me to shit.
Now, which is that the original trilogy that you mentioned? The original Timothy Zahn 3?
Yeah, that was a beast of a person.
Yeah, he still is in the newest trilogy, because Tim Zahn wrote 2 new books, plus there's a new, basically, Thrawn Ascendancy books coming out as well. So there's a bunch of new books, all written by Timothy Zahn, but he's a beast in Rebels when he appears as well.
I was very happy to see him getting on screen very much faithful to what he was represented as in the books.
Definitely. What's interesting, and this will be a thing I think we can probably close with, because we've rambled a bit, or I have. The voice of Thrawn in the animated is voiced by Lars Mikkelsen, Mad Mikkelson's brother. Now, Mad Mikkelsen played Galen's Ursio in Rogue One.
Oh god, sometimes you actually get to think that the cinema and movie industry is some weird incestual pool of decadence.
It is. But when you look at him, when you look at Lars without the beard, because there's pictures of him beard, but without the beard, he's very much that chiseled sort of look, and paint him blue, give him some red eye tints,
Have you seen pictures of David Prowse when he did Vader?
When he was in the makeup on the floor?
In his younger,
When he was younger, yes, I have.
Actually, if you painted him blue, he would be Thrawn too.
Yeah.
So simply because of his stature, his height, and his very blocky chin line.
Definitely.
He would have fit almost perfectly, I think.
Yeah. I mean, another thing, we'll finish off with Dave, was if you look at his sort of credits, there's the stuff he was in, but he was in Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
And he played a monster in a bunch of Hammer horror movies in the 60s. It was like, yeah, because of his stature, he was a bodybuilder, so
been there, done that, and then he's in the British television telling children to cross the street at the Green Cross.
Exactly.
Which got him in trouble playing Vader, because there were rumors of him getting fired off his role of Green Cross because he's impersonating the most evil person in the galaxy.
And
Which I found hilarious, simply for the fact that you can't see his bloody face.
can't see his face. What's interesting as well is he trained Christopher Reeve to bulk up for Superman.
Oh,
He was Christopher Reeve's trainer
this
for
is
Superman.
Just grand.
So, hats off to Mr. Dave Prowse.
Yes, he will be missed. And I think we just need to give Empire Strikes Back another watch and see, simply for his great acting.
Indeed. So,
yeah.
So before we finish, how would you rate this one?
Oh, this is a tough one to do.
Is it better than The Marshal?
Simply on the basis of how it's done in the technical department and the style, the art style it's done, I'd say it's a 9 out of 10. It's a great made episode. That being said, I think it's not to everybody's liking, because this Far East martial arts style is a thing you need to like.
Yeah.
It's like your favorite ice cream. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, if other people might not like it. But just from the technical standpoint, it's brilliantly made. I can't put it any other way. And it's, with, I think, 44 minutes, one of the longer ones, and it feels even longer without feeling dragging on and boring. So I really, really like this one.
Definitely. I think it's, as the episodes for the season, you could probably go the Marshal and Heiress as being the two standouts, the Cobb Vanth Bo-Katan episodes.
Yeah.
I think this ranks above them in just its style, its storytelling for building on to what we've had previously.
Yeah.
I think that was the important part as well, and giving us more information now.
The Marshal one was let's call it popcorn cinema. It was gloriously to watch. It was fun. I had a dirty grin on my face all the time, but it was like fast food. When it's done, it's done. You're not thinking on it anymore. And this episode is something you can, if you rewatch it and you see different things you haven't noticed before, it's a complete. Also, it's the one of the episodes, with the least color in it.
Yes, it's
very close to black and white.
Yeah, it's a very good episode. Yeah. It's I would say it's the best episode of the season. I know we've only got 3 left, so
the best episode of the season yet.
Yeah, exactly. The best episode that they have shown us so far.
So, with this being said, I thank you lot out there for being here. I thank you, Ralph, for being here in the studio. And also, you might want to rewatch the first 10 minutes to get a look at the 88. You can't have missed that.
I was too busy going jaw on floor when seeing Ahsoka kick butt,
Yeah, but 88! One of the most iconic droids in the complete saga of Star Wars.
You missed the IG-11 in the background of the siege.
That was a bloody statue that was been seen for about 2.5 seconds. 88 walks past the Mandalorian and does a gronking noise. And is a white droid on a grey background. Well, anyway. I thank you all for being here. We will see each other again next time. Until then, stay hydrated and indoors.